Okay, well, it's been about, you know what, I think it's been about 2 years since I did my last video. Um, if anyone bothered to watch it, it covered the family Therapsida, which dominated the Permian era. Permian era being that span of time 250 million years ago. I've come to do a second little video of similar topic, but this is more to talk about how exactly you tell the difference between species when you're looking at their bone. I'm no George Cuvier. I'm not well versed in it, but I know the basic concept behind it, and that would be looking for synapomorphies. Synapomorphies are distinguishing characteristics that animals of different groups seem to have. There's a difference between what you would find in a bird, an amphibian, mammal, reptile in particular. So my basic point is every single animal has different aspects or um, details on their bone or in their bone that allow you to tell the difference between the animal group without having to see the animal in the flesh. Um, One that's used to distinguish major groups. Now, I talked about synapsida before. Synapsida being that they have one temporal opening in the head, and that they're the precursors to mammals. Now, this is also used, to find other animal groups as well. You have diapsida, di meaning two, and that refers again to the temporal fenestra, the opening in the head, opening in the side of the head rather, and that's what another way of distinguishing it. Now the openings and the holes in the head are the defining characteristics of different kinds of amniotes. Like I said in the previous video, those are animals that lay eggs, and they include mammals, birds, reptiles, dinosaurs, and what have you. So I guess I'll go into the different groups. We have reptilia, which are, I guess on the most basic level, reptilia consists of every group of amniotes, really. Um, Early synapsida, Archaeothyrus, the early Carboniferous synapsid, is considered a reptile. Um, Helicosaurs, which are members of that family, like Dimetrodon, they're considered reptiles until they hit Therapsida and they start getting the real mammal-like characteristics. And then you have Diapsida, which consists of dinosaurs and birds, and I do believe most lizards. So that's Lepidosauria and Archosauria. Really, Archosauria being the family that consists of dinosaurs, birds, and crocodiles. So really, when you look at it, all dinosaurs are just that middle point between a bird and a crocodile. Um, I mentioned in the previous video about those little evolutionary steps. That's sort of how that works. But there's also euryapsids, which can be confused with synapsids, but they're very different animals. Euryapsids are the family that they're close to Lepidosauria, but they're the family that consists of major marine reptiles, plesiosaurs, pliosaurs, a lot of those slower swimming animals, and you can tell they have one temporal opening just like synapsids. Although the temporal opening is located higher up on the head, so in a synapsid where you would see the temporal opening on the side of the head, a euryapsid you would see the opening kind of toward the top. And again, if you're looking at a mammal or a proto-mammal skull that looks something like a dog, it's going to look very different when compared to a plesiosaur with the bear trap kind of teeth and those little details. Diapsida, I said, also consists of dinosaurs, but the one important detail when looking at this is the fact that every animal family is different, and they'll have weird alterations. They'll have anomalies that don't exactly fit the bill perfectly, and that can be seen in dinosaurs, later dinosaurs usually. And for that, I'm going to go grab a little exhibit that I've been working on for an art class, but it sort of fits. So just a moment. So here I have a drawing that I've been working on, and in the drawing we have the skull of Carcharodontosaurus saharicus, or at least my crude drawing of one. As you can see, the jaw's a tad skinny, but if you look up here, you can see, okay, over here you can see the temporal opening just behind the eye. Now this dinosaur, Carcharodontosaurus, is a dinosaur, in case anyone was wondering, and is considered a diapsid. Now when I'm talking about the fact that every animal, or certain groups are different and don't exactly fit the bill perfectly, most diapsids, the holes are separate. But here, when you look at the temporal fenestration, you can see that that little linkage that separates the two holes is kind of gone, and it just looks like this weird hourglass kind of looking shape. Now, mind you, that's not exactly a perfect temporal fenestra for this particular dinosaur, but it also fits the bill. And while it's here, I guess I'll go into the distinguishing characteristics for most dinosaurs and crocodiles, as it so happens. If you look at the temporal fenestra here, it's diapsida, but the other openings are also important. Now, when you're looking at it, usually, mind you, members of the Archosaur family, which include dinosaurs, birds, and crocs, they'll also have an anorbital fenestration, which is this giant triangular kind of hole that I have here in the skull that separates the eye and the nair, being the nostril at the end of the skull, which is way down here. Let me see if, yeah, here we are. Way down toward the end, you can see where the nose kind of is. So those are some characteristics to look for. The other one you want to look for in this group in particular, and I mean this if you go to any natural history museum, any zoo that's got a crocodile skeleton kicking around, you look, and right there in the lower part of the mandible, let me see if I can get that into focus. Yeah, that lower hole in the jaw, the mandibular fenestration. Now, if you find all of these three things together, then you know you're looking at either a dinosaur, a bird, or a crocodilian. And that's also the case for many other different types of animal as well. If you're looking at, just trying to figure a reptile out, one of the good ways to look is there's usually a hinge or crook in the jaw, which was also in that picture, but it wasn't outlined well enough for me to really show it, but you'll be able to see that sort of crack in the jaw. It's not actually a crack, but it's, a joint or a hinge. And you can find that in most reptiles, not exactly all of them, but it's one of the good factors. Perfect example is when they were identifying Basilosaurus setoides and comparing it with a tylosaur. In case you didn't know, Basilosaurus isn't an actual reptile. It was a whale that was mistaken for a reptile, and due to weird nomenclature rules, anything that's been given a name, the name has to stick, even if it doesn't really fit. So Basilosaurus is actually an ancient whale. It lived about 55 million years ago in the late Eocene, and it was very nasty looking. It had weird, destructive, terrifying looking teeth. Not something you'd really want in your pool. And then there's Tylosaurus, which is a complete reptile. Now, it did not live with Basilosaurus. Tylosaurs are a type of mosasaur. And mosasaurs are a family of snake-like marine reptiles that existed in the Cretaceous during the time of the dinosaurs. Well, really the tail end of that. But convergent evolution comes into play. And I'm not sure if I've really talked about evolutionary convergence, but it's when you have two animals that share near exact or same body plans or structural homologies, structural similarities, but they're separated by millions of years and they almost look exactly the same. A bottlenose dolphin and an ichthyosaur, if you were to ever compare the two skeletons, or it would be very hard to find a difference. And looking for these synapomorphies is a way of indicating that difference and being able to tell. Now, what would the difference be in a tylosaur versus, say, the giant whale Basilosaurus latoides? Other than the teeth, I mean, mosasaurs have very, how would I put it? I mean, they're all very pointy teeth, but most reptiles are homeodontic, which means that they've got the same type of teeth going all the way around the mouth. Mammals are typically heterodontic. We're heterodontic. We've got incisors, we've got molars, we've got all of these freaky teeth in our mouths. It's not the same thing going all the way around. That's one thing you could use. Basilosaurus had very weird looking teeth. Almost looks like something you might find in a wolf's mouth. But again, if you were to look at the two, looking at that hinged jaw I mentioned earlier, you would see that in the tylosaur or a mosasaur, and you wouldn't really see that in a mammal. That's very different. The other thing that you'd see in both of them was probably vestigial limbs. I mean, tylosaurs had flippers, so yeah, the limbs are there. But in a whale, it's a little bit different. Hence the importance of these synapomorphies. Beyond that, you've got, as I said previously, you've got diapsida, euryapsida, and convergent evolution will come into play a lot of times, not just in these situations, and really just mix everything up and make things really hard to detail and figure out. And sometimes the convergence isn't exactly obvious. One of the recent studies on another mosasaur, Platycarpus, I believe it was Platycarpus, revealed that they had a tail fluke very similar to that of a shark. Now that's something completely new. Everyone thought that they had just this weird eel-like lateral beaver-style tail that just swathed side to side, kind of like a croc. So convergent evolution also works in that way, where you'll see that in soft tissue that doesn't normally get preserved in fossils. Excuse me. Now, as far as other aspects of synapomorphies, they can be found in other places, not just the skull, but you can also find them in the postcranial skeleton. A lot of times ankle joints are important when you're looking at certain things. If you're looking at living animals as well, you can actually see certain aspects of their evolutionary precursors. If you look at the chestnut, what's called the chestnut on the horse, it's what's left of what had been their 3 to 5 toes. So yeah, horses used to have toes, in case you didn't know. Yeah, so if you look at any different part of the body, you can see a lot of these synapomorphies, but I think the best way to really find out what's what would be to really just read, go online, any sort of thing, but you sort of just, the importance is certainly there, and that's sort of one of the reasons I'm doing this video. If anyone has any comments, that'd be great too. So, on that note, and the fact that I say way too much, I'm going to conclude this video, and I'd love to hear what anyone has to say. On that note, thanks for watching.